G'day and welcome to Kenty Blitz, your daily hit of NRL news. Kenty, some news out of the Dragons. They've bitten the bullet and they've moved Daniel Atkinson and Kyle Flanagan around. Kyle starts at 7.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Look, it had to happen. Like Kyle, I kind of suspect Kyle's playing a lot of halfback anyway when he was wearing the 6 jersey. I think it was a little bit of a con job from the coaching staff. He put Kyle in the 6 and Atkinson in the 7, and then it'll save some criticism of what's going on. Particularly on Kyle, but now there's just no excuses. It's the last chance to learn for the Dragons. Really, the more you poke around it, the more you hear that the club is really seriously looking at its future, and that Shane Flanagan's been given certainly. I don't know if he's been told, but certainly that there's an understanding if they don't get the results this week, they're going to be looking at the coaching situation. So I think that's a pretty big deal. I think it's the wrong thing to do. I think he's still the right man for the job. I know he's copped a lot of criticism about his recruitment. A lot of people have come in and they've said, Lachlan Ilias, well, got rid of him, and they look at some of the other players there, Gutherson, all the rest of it, and they're not doing the job that they were brought in to do, and there's a lot of criticism over that. I will point out to that what I think he has tried to do, and if you look at, say, some of the outside backs he's brought in and then some of the kids that let go to other clubs, that's annoyed a lot of people. I think what the reason behind that, and we've seen it happen at different times over years, is coaches recognise that the roster's not strong enough, it's not competitive enough, so what they do is they try to bring in some experience fairly quickly to try and turn things around fairly quickly. And then once that gets established, then you can start to try and concentrate on bringing in your juniors up through and try to bring them in that way. If you don't do it that way and you go straight to the young kids, if they get burned early, well, then you're stuck with where do you go? So that's the rationale behind it.
I get it, Kenty, but in the meantime, you lose your juniors, such as Bostock, Tamale, and then you end up signing Philip Sammy on a 3-year contract who starts at 29 years old, and you've lost your 2 juniors.
Yeah, I get it, but what they would be hoping to do there is hope Philip Sammy will do the job, while meanwhile they're probably hoping there's a kid that they've got there now who's 17, 18 years old, who by the time Philip Sammy's finished as a player or ready to move on, or they're ready to move him on, this kid coming through is ready to take that job. And in that meantime, those 3 years that he signed for, then he's done the job he was brought in to do. At the moment, could you rely on Tamale or Bostock to do that job? Well, you could some weeks, but maybe not every week. And
other clubs have signed them, though, and they are performing.
Yeah, but other clubs are in a different situation. That's why. Look, the reason you let them go is not because they can't play. And that's the whole game plan around how you manage your salary cap. You've got to have it. You've got to have the right places in the right spots. You've got to have the square pegs for square holes, so to speak. You've got to have the right number of veteran players. You've got to have the right number of veterans against rookies in your halves, for example, or in your outside backs. You've got to just get the balance right throughout your roster. And St George Illawarra have not had it right for some time, and they've really let it get out of shape. And I think one of the big problems at the club at the moment, I know Daniel Anderson's there now, isn't he? He's in there doing that, and it's his job to do that. It probably needs to happen a little bit quicker than what it is happening. Some clubs are very good at moving guys on quickly or getting guys in quickly. I dare say the Dragons have probably got to start moving a bit quicker and just be a little bit more active and a little bit sort of aggressive. Well, not sort of aggressive, a little bit more aggressive in their whole approach to it all. Get guys in quicker, get them out quicker, and really take stock of their salary cap and get it sorted. At the moment, it's all over the shop, and it's a real problem there. Look, the halves are another problem themselves. I find it fascinating that Kyle Flanagan's gone back to halfback with his father, the head coach, under more pressure than he's ever been under. There's been criticism about the claims of nepotism, all the rest of it. Well, Shane Flanagan's basically put his balls on the line this week with his son. He's basically saying, well, I've been backing my son, and now that his job is increasingly under threat, how soon the axe will fall, we don't know. But now that he's increasingly under threat as the head coach, his gamble is to put his son back at halfback. So he's put his money where his mouth is in many respects.
I think the Dragons in many ways have been underdone by their recruitment. And if you look at many clubs and how they're going in terms of pathways, in terms of, your top 30. The Dragons now have got Daniel Anderson in there, but he's doing, as far as I know, recruitment and pathways. And I wonder if that job's too big for one person, particularly when you've got a big space like that.
He'd have staff to help him out. Look, there's no doubt. And I'm obviously not inside the four walls and can break down everything that's happening. But Daniel Anderson knows his footy.
Absolutely.
And knows what he's doing.
And did a tremendous job setting up the Roosters with, with what he did there.
Yeah. And when a man like that goes from one job to another, he takes that, what do you call that, intellectual property with him. He takes what he knows.
So much so that the Roosters actually got rid of him straight away when he said it.
Once he said he was signing,
bang, straight out the door.
Yeah, and that's understandable. Yeah. I get that, but you've got to do that. But you've got to be probably a little bit more ruthless in the way they're managing things and the way they're moving players on and getting players in. They've got to play a little bit hardball. You look at clubs, Canterbury, when they do it, they make it happen. They make it happen, and even the Roosters today. The Roosters, that's another story. They've told Connor Watson, it's time to have a look around and see if he can get another start. Now, there's no doubt he's probably had a couple of nibbles, particularly from Perth, who would be mad if they weren't looking at him. But straight away, the Roosters, okay, mate, you're free to go.
And is that a way you manage your roster and roll your roster, so to speak?
Well, that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
It's like the ocean, mate. It never stops. You can never sit there and go, okay, we're satisfied. Already, the great clubs, and Penrith have done this particularly well. They look at what their roster looks like, and they've got people like Matt Cameron and that. They have their roster already. He would have his roster sorted for next year already, Penrith, and potentially the season after. If it's not finished completely, it'd only be a couple of spots left on it. And the third year from now, they'd be well into that as well. And that would be a list of kids. They'd have a list of kids here who are currently 16, 17, 18, who they think who are already within the system, who they think are going to hit first grade and at what stage they'll be at in each year. And then they'll have the veterans and how long and whether they think they'll last. And they have it there, and it's just a jigsaw puzzle. And, okay, this guy's going to go out, so we need somebody to fill the spot. Have we got anybody? Let's have a look at it. And Penrith have done it particularly well. And other clubs are trying to figure it out. Other clubs... That's the fascination of the game, Warren. Every fan has this assumption that everybody in the job is on top of the job and knows the job and does the job well. And sometimes you speak to people in the game and they have ideas on things. And I've got a million stories of CEOs and general managers of football saying things to me, and you just walk away shaking your head thinking, you poor buggers, you know what I mean? And that's not built obviously because I haven't been inside the club. But when you talk to every club and you're talking about how they do things and how they do things and how they do things, and then suddenly some numbnut comes up and says, "Oh mate, we're doing this," and you just think, "You poor buggers." Yeah. But they're always very good at the sell. They're very good at saying this is what we're thinking of doing. This is the way we're going to handle it, and selling it to the fans and. The poor old fans, they just cop it in the neck.
The interesting thing about Penrith is they have about 6,000 registered juniors or something like that. Someone will correct me, but it's close. Most clubs have, closer to 1,000 juniors. They've got 5 times that. The interesting thing is we talk about the Dragons and the joint venture, and the whole point about the joint venture in the first place was to get the Illawarra juniors. Yeah. That was going to be the rich kind of blood of people. There's a story in today's Daily Telegraph by David Riccio, who I'll preface is a staunch Sharks fan. So he'll put in the boot anytime he can. But what he's saying is that the joint venture should end. And it's not dissimilar to what you said recently.
Well, my argument against joint venture is that they continue to refer to themselves and behave like it's a joint venture. And even now, Bruce Gordon owns the Illawarra side of the partnership, and the St George Leagues Club owns the other side of the partnership. And what happens is the problem is, and you have this sometimes, particularly with private owners, they say, mate, we need a new gym, or we need new equipment, or we need something else, or this has to happen. We want to go and stay 2 nights before the game in Townsville. We don't want to stay just one night. And private owner goes, well, mate, I don't think we really need to spend the money. We're not going to do that.
It's coming out of my pocket.
That's coming out of his pocket.
Yep.
And then, but what's happening at the Dragons is the St George Dragons side of it. Well, they get the shits at that, and they go, well, mate, if you're not going to spend the money, we're not. And so for some time now, the club has really been hindered by that attitude, and it's been a real butting of heads between both sides for a long, long time. I don't think that they've got to get. I don't think they should get rid of the Dragons. I do like the idea of just a very streamlined operation, one way. I did have a look at it. I know you're going to love this, but for all the talk about the Dragons and this proud history the Dragons has, if you take out the 11 in a row, they've only won 5 comps in 105 years. You're not going to be banging on anyone's door shouting that out. I know they've got St George. They've got 15 premierships as the Dragons. They've got one more as the St George Illawarra Dragons.
All right. Well, so my counter to that is Kenty. A couple of days ago, we sat here and you're telling me how good the Melbourne Storm were because they made so many grand finals. Dragons made the grand final 85, 92, 93, 96, 99. I agreed the last 8 years have been dreadful.
Yeah.
But you're telling me a few days ago that the Storm were the super club because they make the grand final. Doesn't matter if they win, and the Dragons have made those grand finals.
I know, and they've had 80 more years to get that, couple more grand finals. So well done to the Dragons. But look, the fact is, though, they really need to just they've got to talk, and I think they've got to talk the management of the Illawarra side into it about saying, mate, we need to have it all as one, and they need to find a way to get it done. It's not getting done because there's an argument at the top level about how things just get run by the club, and that holds the club back. It's a real problem for the club.
Well, they've spent a lot of money on this high performance centre down in Wollongong.
Well, the government has.
Both sides have kicked in close to 10 each.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's nice. Yeah. That's nice to do. But they kick in 10 each. It's worth a lot more than that, and no one else gets to use it. So they're going okay.
Yeah. You got to develop your juniors sometime. The interesting thing I found about that Riccio article was where he was mentioning about moving games to Wollongong, based around getting government funding. I know the St George district side have just done a big deal with Georges River Council to keep the games at Cogra. What have you got a feeling about this suburban games and keeping games at domestic grounds?
I like it. Yeah, look, as you know, I go to Leichhardt. I do like the local grounds. But they're only getting 8,000 on there on the weekend against the Cowboys. You can't survive with that kind of gate. No. It's just not going to be enough for you. So you've got to fix that out. The other thing is, I know they went to Illawarra because of the juniors. That's one of the great furphies, I think, in the argument about what you need to do. Everyone argue, well, look at the juniors Illawarra got. Illawarra never won a comp. With all those juniors which they had way back, they never won a comp. Meanwhile, the Roosters, who've got the smallest junior pool in the competition, to the point where all their junior teams basically joined the South Sydney competition just so they could play different team each week. They've got the smallest, but they continue to excel and make grand finals and win grand finals. Having a junior base, and this is the argument that Penrith can mount against the criticisms or claims that people say, they've got so many juniors. Nothing stops a talent scout, nothing stops the general manager of football of the Roosters or Parramatta from going out to Penrith and picking a kid and saying, mate, we want you to come and play for us. Nothing is going up to Brisbane and going to the Brisbane Junior Footy Carnivals and all the rest of it and finding a kid there and signing him up. No, the old import rule doesn't exist anymore. So that's an irrelevant argument.
I did hear, though, and you're completely right there, Kenny, but I did hear what Penrith are doing now is they're preventing their players, if they go and play for another club, which isn't Penrith, they can't come back and play for their local club with their mates. So that's prevented some of that going out, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, because and I don't like that. That because I don't like that. That's an oldie, that one. That's been happening a long, long time. And a lot of teams have picked that up to try and prevent their good kids. Because if you've got a good kid, you're a real gun halfback, but you've got Nathan Cleary in the same age group as you. Well, you're not going to play rep footballs. So if the Canterbury juniors, for example, say, well, come and play in our junior rep squads, they'll do that. But when the junior rep team competitions are over, which are a shortened competition, he should be allowed to go back and play for his club.
Absolutely. With his mates.
But that's the NRL or the New South Wales Rugby League should stop that.
Yeah. Last thing on David Riccio. article. I just think
I like Ricky out too.
Yeah, I know he's your mate. I know he's your mate, and I don't even know him. So, but I just think it's an interesting time in that article because I think it's a real smother to try and gloss over the real issues at the club, which is recruitment, and
there's a lot
coaching.
more issues. Well, look, the issues is the clubs they've got their backs to the wall. They need a win this week. It's going to be against a resurgent Manly team. Who knows how that's going to fare? But the fact is, they need a win, and anything that's not talking about that is probably a good thing for them.
Yep. Let's move on.
All right, time for our points bet multi this week. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start going with the teams that are scoring points because they are the teams that are dominating at the moment, certainly in the market. So this week we're going to look no further than Penrith. Minus 14.5 at $1.66, all up into Paul Alamotti as a try scorer, all up into Casey McLean as a try scorer, all up into Dylan Edwards as a try scorer. They are white hot at the moment, the Panthers. They should clear that gap easily, I think. Points bet. It's like hot sauce. Just for sport.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Let's talk about Jackson Purdue signed a new deal at the Cowboys for the next 4 years, $750,000 a year.
Yeah.
Funny thing about this, Kenty, it was not so long ago, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about how no one had signed for the Cowboys and Payton was there and no one wanted to sign for him. It's amazing how many 3 games and 3 wins makes. Is 3 wins? 3 wins, has made.
They've done they're starting to find a little bit now, the Cowboys, and he's a great fella, great player, that kid. So, and look, what can you say? They're a side that's taken a little bit to get going, but they were very impressive against the Dragons on the weekend.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah, and so they have started to show something. I've always believed that Todd Payton's a very good coach. There's been a bit of a outside the walls, bit of a knock on him from people who just look at the results and just say they've got dramas there. But I think they're a club that's had a few recruitment issues themselves in recent years.
Absolutely.
And so it's taken them a little while to get going. But re-signing Purdue, the coach has got a couple of wins going now. He looks much happier in the box as well.
They should really do better how big that catchment is up there for them, don't you think?
Well, who knows? How do you know Brisbane are going up, as I said earlier, and taking all their players?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But look, nothing's sacred anymore, Warren. You can go and take kids from wherever you want to take kids, and it's hard to keep them too. It's hard to keep some kids. So, look, I don't know. I think they're doing a good job up there. I think that the club is probably the problems with the Cowboys. It's probably happening. Look, they were so much in the mould of Lawrence Lancini when he was there as the chairman, and he ran the club, and he ran the club very well, but he ran the club in his image, so to speak. Now, they had success out there. Once he left the club, you've got rookies up there now running the club, and they're trying to do the job, but they don't know the job. That's if you want to get to it, that's the issue, and that's where you start. That's where Todd Payton needs help, because he's probably having trouble in his recruitment because he's got people who aren't really experienced. Like Michael Luck's up there as the head of football. Now, he came in God bless him, but he came in as a sweetheart deal because he was a real clubman. But he had no experience in the job. And so suddenly he's got to come in, he's learning on the job. Todd's got a rookie there trying to help him out. But the bloke's a rookie. CEO, well, you've hardly spotted him around rugby league before. You know what I mean? So
it's interesting.
There's a few issues there.
It's interesting because there's no how do you become a specialist administrator in rugby league?
Yeah,
right?
Warren, the thing about it all, I find this fascinating. When players retire these days, they go one of two ways. They want to go into coaching. Very few just walk away from the game. Very few, like high-profile elite players, just walk away and go, I'm going to go and become an accountant now. I'm going to go and get into marketing or whatever. They all want to stay in the game. And the ones that want to work get into coaching, and the ones that don't want to work get into media. Right, They do.
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
And generally the ones that get into media find that's a bit boring because we're all knuckleheads.
Yeah.
So then they start to try and get an assistant job somewhere else and try and do a little bit of both. And there's a lot of nearly every ex-player now working in the media has still got some club affiliation.
So, mate,
but they only want to go in those areas. Nobody like Jason King, or very few like Jason King, want to go into the administrative side of it. That's probably in time, that'll be where the money is. Phil Gould would be earning more than Cameron Ciraldo at Canterbury.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say an assistant coach is on a kind of like 250 to 350 around that.
Yeah.
And if you're CEO, you're on half
Yeah, you'd be on
500,
600,000. You'd be looking at that. And if you had the marketing and you're doing a good job, you'd probably be on 350 to 4.
So somebody like Jason King, though, is a lawyer, right? So he's given up that at least, right? But the thing I like about Jason King, and the thing I liked about how the Manly covered this kind of crisis that they had, was they were very direct and they knew what they wanted. And Jason King, he's kind of, I guess, his background in law allowed him to see what was going on and he was able to make decisions.
Yeah, but he'd also had a grounding at the NRL. He'd come through the integrity unit and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, the good old integrity unit.
Friends of yours.
Friends of mine. Yeah, but I find it fascinating. I know in the past a couple of players have gone into that area, looked at it, and they've stayed 12 months and said, "I'm getting out of here," because they don't get the adrenaline rush. But it's a fascinating way that they all choose to go. That very few of them say they're going to go into that side of it, which is probably the safest side of it, and you're going to have more longevity in the game because there's a few assistants who have made a deal out of being assistants, which I also find fascinating, that they'll just go and work with any coach in any type of system and they continue to get jobs, but off they go.
I guess what else are they going to do?
But why is the club looking at it?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Why is the club looking at some of these professional assistants? Now, some of them are very good, can bring a lot to it, but some, there's some people there like.
Let's not name names.
Yeah, I'm not going to name names, but some can't improve a team, and some guys, they get a job, and the team always gets unfitter, if that's the word, every time that certain people land at certain clubs because they just don't train them hard enough.
Yeah,
and yet, to my point of last week, once the PowerPoint presentation goes up, the board just sit there and eyes glaze over, and they say, "Give this guy a pen and sign the contract." And
very good, Kenty. There's a lot of our fans out there are hoping that you don't get on board their team because since you've got on the back of the Warriors. Talk about the kiss of death.
I know.
All of a sudden, you've come out and you said you love the Warriors and they've tanked since.
I really love the Warriors because I said they were flaky. I said they were hard. Yeah, my knock on the Warriors was that they were flaky. And I said, but they've fixed that. They're tough. They're defending tough. They're playing tough.
They missed 80 tackles in the last since you've said that.
Since I said that, 2 games, 80 missed tackles. So I don't know. Look, I don't know what's going to happen this week. I will say I didn't think Tanner Boyd and Luke Metcalf gelled as a halves pairing.
Early days, though.
Well, it doesn't matter. They didn't gel and they lost both games. Now, Luke Metcalf's out of the team this week, as we know, with I think it's hamstring injury, isn't it? So Tanner Boyd's back running the side. Be interesting to see if that changes anything. I don't know why it would really have much influence on the defence. I don't think it does, to be fair. But I think in a weird way they're connected, just kicking game and all the rest of it. So, but I'm really fascinated to see how the Warriors respond because I think the last 2 weeks that they've played, it's almost like they've just almost thought they could sort of dial in the win.
Gone through the motions, you think?
Yeah, I think that they need a bit of a kick up the backside because they can play as tough as anybody. But they can also get carried away with their success, and that's historically been a problem at the club. It's not been really a big problem with Webster, but they did have that second year with him where they just couldn't get it right. I hope more than anything that doesn't transpire this season. It turns into one of those years where they just can't get it going because they did start the season very well, and they ended last season very well. All of last season they did very well. So hopefully they get it back on track very soon. But they've got to get it going soon because that can become permanent if you just keep having those types of losses and that many missed tackles. Your average of 40 missed tackles a game. Not good.
Tell me what's happened to the minor premiers, your Raiders. What the hell's going on down there?
Yeah, the Raiders have just – it's funny. I know that they've had an off-season where they didn't want to – a lot of people, the question was, can they repeat what they did? They wanted their attitude was they wanted to improve on it. Take what that as a building block to the next step. But they've just the Raiders are a little bit frustrating, like the Warriors are, but for different reasons. They're getting carried away with themselves. And if I was Ricky Stewart, I'd tell them all to bring in their scrapbooks and I'd throw it on a bonfire. Okay, I think that they're doing things in games good teams have sort of traditionally do and get away with. And just shitty little things, hand on the ball, pulling a leg, all that undisciplined stuff, all those little professional fouls. The good players get away. Latrell Mitchell, look, he could go and he could take an axe out on the field with him and get away with it. All right, Stephen Crichton the same.
Stephen Crichton, definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the Raiders can't. And the Raiders, Corey Horsburgh, he's got his own name, chair in the sin bin, because he just makes these stupid mistakes. Now, I know he got sin bin the other day when he was inside the 10, and it was a tough call, but it was the right call. And the look of shock when they get sent to the sin bin. Now, the Raiders are just playing dumb football. And the way the game is, particularly now, with the 6 against, with this way that if you dominate possession, the Raiders are a very fit team, but you can't keep defending back-to-back sets. No team can do that.
One man short.
One man short, but even when you're 13 on 13, you can't keep doing that. And that's what they're doing. They're just giving away set after set, and it's all through ill discipline. It's all I think trying to be too clever. We're one of the big dogs in the comp. We're going to get away with all this sort of stuff, and they're not getting away with it. But they haven't got the brains to stop it.
No, well, they're coming second last.
Yeah, and they keep giving away ridiculous 6 agains, and they keep silly penalties and just making dumb decisions. I think they're too loose in how they attack. Like they got carried. They were tremendous last year with their second phase play. Some of the second phase they've tried this year, it's not even like they're ready for it. Their teammates aren't ready for it. They're just getting the ball and throwing it out the back and off they go. And, they just really need to tighten their game right up.
You think they miss Fogarty?
Yeah, they miss him a little bit. Look, Sanders, he's put a couple into the grandstand in his kicking game, which Fogarty didn't do that sort of stuff. I know he's still learning his ways. He's a young kid. He's got a lot of good points to him. But every now and then I think that they're just, his kicking game's probably put him under a little bit of pressure, and they haven't been able to defend the mistake, to be fair.
The other interesting thing on the weekend, Kenty, was with Mitchell Moses, and there's been a lot of conjecture about this and what happened, and you had a social post that blew up yesterday around referees and talking to the referees. Well, Mitchell Moses has been issued a warning concerning axe notice, which is a level below a player receiving a charge.
Yeah.
And originally they said, or they inferred that it was because he touched the player, but now the referee. But now they're saying it wasn't because of that. It was just because of his persistent questioning of Goff over the weekend. Yeah,
look, the NRL talked tough at the beginning of the season about they weren't going to allow things. They only going to allow the captain to talk. They weren't going to allow other players to talk.
Well, they sent out something after round 2.
Yeah,
again.
And every time Mitchell Moses had a crack at the referee or asked the referee or took a question to him, he had Josh Adokar just about next to him, going the same way. The referee's just got to start saying, mate, like I support the referees just saying, go away.
Yeah.
March them 10 metres, goes again, just 10 minutes in the sin bin. That'll stop it. And I don't like the fact that every time there's a bloody penalty in the game, they have to go and ask why. Now, the NRL...
Trying to slow the game down as well.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
The referee, look, they understand it, but they shouldn't have to explain every penalty. Carry a rule book in your pocket. It's like, mate, go to the sideline, read that, and come back when you're finished. You know what I mean? You want to know what you did wrong.
Yeah.
But it's a tactic to slow the play down, to give themselves time to get, even if it's only 5 or 10 seconds, that's enough. When you work, your whole game is built around these repeat efforts. When you can get an extra 5 or 10 second break, that gives you a little bit more energy. And that's what they're trying to do, knowing they're about to defend a set of 6. So the referees have got to be a bit smart of that and just say, get away. And if they don't get away, march them 10 metres. If they don't, then put them in the sin bin. But they're getting played a bit at the moment. They've got this edict, this strictly no touching edict the NRL came out. Well, that was probably not so strict, given he touched him 3 times and the referee didn't do a thing. They sent a message out later, mate, don't do that again. But the fact is he touched him 3 times and the referee, now there's nothing to it. They were all friendly touches, right? They weren't aggressive in any manner. And I think Mitch was trying to sweetheart the referee a little bit. Like, mate, we're mates. Come on, what I mean? Come on, pat on the back. Come on, mate. But it didn't swing. But I just think that the NRL, this is just one of those
irritates
attentions
fans, right?
It is. It irritates fans, and it's the attention to detail that is constantly missing from headquarters about what happens each weekend. And these things, once they happen too often, then they become a habit, then they become accepted. And then when we say, well, hang on, it's a penalty for that, everyone goes, well, hang on, why is that? Didn't do it last week. Just mate, bugger off. Like, just say, guys, go away. I don't want you. No, you're not allowed to talk to me.
But then they say I'm the captain.
Well, but half of them aren't the captain. Half of them aren't the captain. But even if it is the captain, give him an explanation. Don't argue. The best one, this is the best. Go for a challenge, captain's challenge. He's challenging the offside or the knock on, whatever it is. Comes back, yep, mate, you've lost your challenge. Mate, that's not, no way.
That's
they
not what
still
I
argue it.
Yeah.
And then they say, but they try to then have logic with the referee when the decision has been made by the bunkers.
Yeah,
it's nothing to do with them.
Yeah,
but they'll still try and argue it.
Have you seen what they're doing now? I don't know if you've. So basically, they're giving away the penalty from the scrum penalty.
Yeah,
they're not packing in time. They give away the penalty because they think it's better than a try. You notice that?
They're giving away the penalty so that way they can defend a penalty rather than a scrum, because that way they've got more defenders across the try line, across the defensive line. Yeah. Now, Warren, I've said this before. For whatever reason, when the professional foul came in back in the day, and I'm old enough to remember when sin bin first came in, there was professional foul was one of the rules. There was a 5-minute sin bin, there was a 10-minute sin bin, and referees were putting players in the sin bin saying professional foul. And guys were going, well, hang on, that was a professional foul. Or, I was just tired. I couldn't get off him. You know what I mean? That's why I was holding him down the tackle. All sorts of rubbish like that. So then what we did, to make everybody happy, and make the coaches in particular happy, it got standardised. And basically, for a long, long time, the only professional foul in the game that resulted in a sin bin was holding down when there's been a potential try-scoring break made. But we're seeing things like this happen now, where they're deliberately giving away the clock's on, the scrum clock's on. They're deliberately giving away a penalty by not packing time, so that way they can get more players in the defensive line, give themselves a better chance of defending the try. And it's always when they're defending their own try line, okay? That's a professional foul.
Yep.
And there's others happening. We spoke about others the other day. They are professional fouls. Put them in the bin. And if you say, and people say, oh, hang on, 10 minutes is a bit much for that. And in that case, well, who do you put in the bin? You either put whoever's late to the scrum, probably that's the guy you go after, if you can identify that.
Or the halfback for not putting the ball in.
Or the halfback, okay? And see how they go without the halfback for 10 minutes. It's an easy fix. Because as soon as that happens, clubs will tell their players, don't do it now. That's how it gets fixed. So it's not like all these people, oh, mate, that's unfair, we lose our play. That's not going to happen. The coach just says to his halfback, mate, just feed the ball next time.
All right, Kenny, thanks, mate. Another great episode. Until tomorrow, we'll see you then, hopefully.
How will we, mate?
Very good. Until then, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.